the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
Projects. So Stephen, you will go first, right?
Yeah.
And he will talk about his project, which is about MTA, Metropolitan Transit Authority's ISI Envision verification. So let's start with Stephen, and let's welcome Mr. Stephen Crocco.
Thank you, Dibs. So to start out on my project about Envision within New York City MTA, the Transit Authority. Of course, myself, I'm a student on this project. I got my B in Civil at Stevens and then went on for Sustainability Management. Externally, I worked with the MTA with mentors Tom Abdallah and Kate Iglitsky. I was very lucky to work with them. Their office is actually really close to my TY Land downtown office. So it was great to meet them and great to work with them bi-weekly. And then, of course, Dibs helped all of us out along the way. Caden, move to the next slide.
Sorry.
So of course, why does the MTA matter? I'm sure most people go to Stevens, have used the subway, can probably know their importance, especially in comparison to a lot of transit authorities around the country. Their role in transit and sustainability, especially as a public transportation resource, puts them in that sustainability realm already. There's an opportunity for leadership in infrastructure sustainability, especially as the MTA. They are somebody who in New York City, if they talk, some people will listen. And of course, post-COVID ridership has brought back to levels of pre-COVID. We're finally back there and gaining, and then congestion pricing's impact and the funds that the city will get from that. So what is Envision? It's with the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure. It's kind of like LEED, but for all different infrastructure, all different types, and I kind of prefer it as a civil engineer. And there's many types of criteria and levels to verification, ranging from verified, which is 20% of percentage points achieved, up to platinum. And there are 5 main criteria, starting with quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, the natural world, and climate and risk. So it's not just about climate, as some people might think, but you guys know this in sustainability. And then, these criteria are broken down into smaller criteria and then assessed from an improved scale to restorative. And as you can see on that chart in the bottom right, conserving has no negative impact, and that restorative is net positive. But it's very hard to make something net positive. Next slide. So my project goals. I wanted to identify applicable Envision credits for the MTA. To do this, I would look at peer transit projects from transit agencies across America and possibly around the world. And to do this, I would view these projects and see their Envision scorecards. And then I would develop New York City specific strategies with my knowledge of the MTA, my knowledge of the New York City metro area, and try to apply this to future New York City projects, such as the 2nd Avenue subway, the first picture, and then the IBX light rail on the right, and then recommend practical implementation steps of these credits and scorecards. Next. Methodology, I went with a 3-phase approach, which we'll see on the schedule later. First is the project case study reviews, including documentation and meetings from project leads from all different agencies, engineering firms, and with Envision. Next, I would evaluate the credits, the individual credits on what was used most, what was used in different transportation types, such as light rail or heavy rail metro. And then, of course, lastly, I would adapt to New York City. And one issue that I find looking back on everything, these projects do use different Envision versions. And I know at the time, I was just trying to find the best match for credits, even though they might change in V2, V3, V4. And these credits and evaluations change. But on the right here, we have 2 very successful projects. The first is the LAX automated mover. If you click Caden, it'll tell you the award. Envision Gold. And then on the bottom right is Berryessa Transit Center. That's in San Jose, California. And that scored platinum. Next slide, please.
Nice visuals.
Thank you. The project timeline. Here's my nice Gantt chart here. As you can see, I had bi-weekly meetings. That was probably the most important thing. I met with a bunch of people, as I mentioned. I met with Dr. Bernal, I see on this schedule. We can move to the next slide.
Yes, I know
Hey, Stephen, Caden, and others, like this guy Gantt used to be a professor at Stevens.
Really?
Yeah. One of the, like, again, things that the Stevens people did, other than like that thing, like
The mobile?
yeah. And like, those popping like things for that you use for packaging. What do they call them? Like, again, the
the packing peanuts, right?
Packing peanuts.
No, the other one, like, the pop.
Bubble wrap.
The bubble. The
bubble wrap. The bubble wrap. Yeah.
bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Wow. They must have told us that on like a college tour 6 years ago, and I forgot. Yeah, so this second half of the timeline, we start here with the second phase, the Envision credit research, and then the application to the MTA. On the previous page, I actually saw that I had like research Canadian and Italian projects. There were a lot. And then I found, you know what, there's enough in America for me to do in this, in this small time frame. So I stuck with American projects. Move next. The projects analyzed, you can see here. Here are the main ones. The Kansas City streetcar is very popular in transit circles. The Rapid Ride H in Seattle, that's a bus route. The People Mover we saw, the West Side Subway extension, that I'll talk a little bit more about, that's in LA. And yeah, this had engagement from many of the largest agencies and Envision firms and transit firms across the country, and of course, across different Envision versions we can see. So here's an example. This is the West Side Subway extension for the LA Metro. It's approximately 4 miles. This is section 1 of 3 for this subway extension, including 3 new stations, and this relieves stress off of existing bus routes. It adds a high-speed transit connection between the Wilshire neighborhood, Beverly Hills, and Westwood, something that is very necessary in a city with not much transit. They had a lot of community outreach and representation using native plant life and local art. That is how they scored a lot of their high scoring credits. And they also reduced stormwater runoff and air pollution. And then when you click, you see a map of this extension. This was really cool. I met with a representative of LA Metro. It was nice how connected the people at the MTA were to get me in contact with everyone. And yeah, that on the right there, from Wilshire to the Wilshire Western stop, like on the far right, is the section 1. And then that goes like almost out to like where the Santa Monica line goes. but that's phase 2 and 3. It'll take a while. Next, please. The scoring framework. So here is the, I guess, the meat and potatoes of the actual analysis that I performed. So you could see I used a scoring of 0 to 5 for each credit. And so for each project, I saw, did they get anything for each like individual credit, such as like improved quality of life for the community, that's QL 1.1, Times Square Shuttle scored enhanced, which would be from 0 to 5, that would be a 2. And so I used that, and I would sum the amount of like the score for each credit, and that would, and once I divide that amongst the amount of projects, that would get, you know, the most important credits that these other agencies go for, the credits that are easiest to get to, the credits that are used most often, the credits that could score highest, you know, to restorative and conserving levels. And as you can see, the Times Square Shuttle, that is the first Envision certified project in New York City, and that's why it's a really important time for the New York City to get even more involved. Next slide, please. The top Envision credits with this analysis that I performed, the first one is QL 2.1, that had a score of 4.43. So most of these projects had, you know, the highest score. So restoring, conserving. The first one is implementing ADA compliant upgrades and enhancing connectivity in underserved neighborhoods. Obviously, subway, metro connections will connect these neighborhoods together. The second one, QL 2.2, and as you can see, a lot of quality of life improvements. I know it myself as an avid public transit rider, it improves my quality of life. The second one is integrating bike lanes and multimodal transportation. And that's always awesome when you leave the Hoboken transit station, you have obviously a bunch of city bikes and the bike lane along the waterfront. That's an example of that. And then the last one, CR 2.2, conducting climate risk assessments and infrastructure in flood-prone zones. Could move on. So to adapt this specifically to New York City, which is kind of the last phase of my project, is to prioritize equity in project siting, make sure to make these investments in underserved neighborhoods. That would obviously underscore the IBX, providing a much needed transit corridor from the outskirts of Brooklyn to Queens. Use green roofs and vertical space, have a nice picture of that later. Combine credits in compact footprints, add stormwater and heat controls to fight the urban heat isle effect, perhaps adding bioswales, preserve historic station details. This is something that I really appreciate when you see, you know, these historic stations, such as, I know the one train at South Ferry has like old parts of the wall, of the original Manhattan like seawall. And then lastly, feature local art and culture, as the LA Metro has proved to be able to do. Next slide. So this is the status of my planned tasks. How well did I do based on what I set out to achieve? I achieved almost everything that I wanted to. I was able to identify Envision transit projects that I wanted to use. I had more than enough. I was able to conduct outreach to all different types of professionals. I was able to apply these findings to MTA project types. That's the Second Avenue Subway, the IBX, Interborough Express. I haven't said that before. The last thing that I did want to have that might have taken a lot more time and effort is the creation of a template checklist to apply to any MTA project.
Sorry, Steve.
No, all good. Yeah, so basically just to be able to apply Envision to every project while you are just thinking out, proposing this project, creating an RFP, that's something that would be very helpful. You know, they don't have to spend all the money on an Envision expert or on an Envision firm to analyze it. Maybe they can just do it themselves, get everybody involved. I know, I forget which agency it was, but they told me that they were getting everyone, including their accountants, educated in Envision, just to show, you know, people behind the money, people in all phases, why Envision is important. Not just an engineer that went to school for infrastructure. Next slide, please. Yeah, so my recommendations for the MTA and for all agencies, Envision firms, engineering firms, create an MTA Envision playbook. That was my final thing. And use for applicability to common MTA projects, to use it on small projects, gaining practice on applying a few credits at a time. This is something I know the MTA was mentioning, that they want to be able to, you know, they have station upgrades. They're not building a new station. They might be repairing tracks. How can they use Envision there? They might not spend the money to get it verified, but, you know, it's very good practice for when the next Times Square shuttle comes. They have experience in all projects. All of their engineers know how to do it. Next, I would recommend that they add Envision to, oh, sorry, back one slide.
Wrong next.
Oh, good. I would add Envision to all proposals and contracts. You know, make these engineering firms apply themselves and do a little bit better for their community. Get this training and certification for all staff, especially those in the business side. And then, of course, continue collaboration with other agencies and universities, like I was able to do with Siemens. You know, the LA Metro can't build a subway line in New York. There's no competition there. It's best for these agencies to know each other, as they already do, and connect on how to best make their cities a better, more sustainable place. Next slide. The implications of this study and the future of these Envision studies for the MTA and the world of sustainability and transportation. The MTA already does support low carbon mobility. It already is sustainable, which is why with that Times Square shuttle, I was taught that, you know, it might not, looking back on it, they might not have needed to apply so many credits. They might not have gotten the highest possible score. But if they were to have started the Envision process early on as possible, when they were just proposing the project, Envision is so much easier to apply. They get recognition from the city and from professionals in the industry. So it's best to start early. You get more funding. It looks better in the public light. So yeah, like I've mentioned, it highlights existing sustainable practices. And this verification improves the public trust, transparency of where their money is going. It supports climate resilience and future proofs our cities, where most people will be living in by the end of the century. Cities are only growing, population's only growing. This will help secure funding and grants. It promotes equity in transit access design, and it also aligns with city goals. Any New York City board member or politician would benefit from supporting this, as it already supports laws that people have wanted to be put in place. Next slide. The long-term impact of this and future studies, this will grow the MTA Sustainability Performance Database. As of now, they only have one project in Envision. This Envision could be integrated into emergency response plans. Say they need to repair a track as soon as possible. Maybe once they have that experience on smaller projects, larger projects, they can integrate Envision to make sure everything is considering all aspects of a project and who and what it affects. Long-term, this can track the return on investment of adapting Envision early rather than later on. This can inform the city and state's climate and equity policy, as the MTA is already such a large leader in the city and state. Lastly, as I've already mentioned, one of the most important impacts is to use Envision in not just big projects or flashy projects, but in everything. Next slide. I think that's the end. Yeah. And this is the Times Square shuttle. I'm not sure how many people have used that, because it's very particular, but it's, you know, a very important business corridor in the city.
Cool. So that was an excellent presentation, Stephen. Like again, for those people who are actually going to take SM 690 in spring, this will give them a very good idea of how much work is involved. And you pretty much, not pretty much, you actually touched on all the subheadings like that are required parts of the project report. So let's do it this way. Like let's hold the Q&A until after like Caden's presentations. Uh, Clearly, like again, he has stopped typing, so he's getting ready to make his presentation. So Caden,
I'll just hop in, huh? And we'll do
yeah,
questions all together at the end.
yep. Yes, but you guys are going to be here like until later. So like once you get done with your part, then the students will ask you questions here, and we'll have plenty of time today to ask you questions here. Then like more personal level questions in the that breakout room thingy.
Of course.
Sure. So Kaden will talk about his individual capstone project where he evaluated corporate sustainability reporting directive or CSRD readiness for Hilton Worldwide.
Yes.
Kaden,
So,
all yours.
hello, I am Caden Stott. This is my project about CSRD readiness for Hilton Worldwide. Now, I'm sure you have all been assailed with acronyms for months now, and there's a lot of acronyms in the sustainability world, a lot of acronyms in the civil engineering world, and this presentation, really there's just one that boils down to that you need to know. The CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. I'll get into what exactly that means, but for now, that's the biggest thing you need to know. That's me, that's my information. I worked with Catherine Ruiz, who is also an alumni of Stevens. She lives in North Carolina now, and she is a PM for corporate social responsibility at Columbus McKinnon and does great work with them. And she was an incredible resource to have during my project. And obviously, our great team at Stevens helping us. Thank you, Dibs. Who is Hilton? Now, Hilton is one of the largest hotel brands in the world. I would be shocked if anybody on this call is not familiar with Hilton Hotels. And CSRD, I'll get into what that is, but for what we need to know, that is just in the European Union, in the EU. Hilton operates over 500 hotels in the EU. They are a huge presence in the European hotel market, and they have a huge footprint in Europe. Now, what is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive? It is a very broad name for a set of laws coming to the European Union in the next decade, 5 to 10 years. This is part of the European Green New Deal strategy. And there are three main tenets to this deal. First, to get net zero carbon emissions by 2050. They want to decouple economic growth from fossil fuel usage and make sure that no company or social group or country in the European Union gets left behind by the new emerging economies that are tailored to the 21st century. Now, that is a whole lot of high level stuff. And what that can really be boiled down to is that this will be a set of laws telling companies how to be sustainable. So the amount of companies in the European Union that will need to comply with these regulations are staggering. Somewhere over 10,000 different companies in the EU will need to comply with some sort of CSRD regulation. So you can imagine how wide-reaching these set of laws are. Now, for my project, I wanted to see how a large company can react and prepare for something like a whole new set of laws that could fundamentally change the economy and ecosystem that they work in. I wanted to use Hilton as an example firm, and I wanted to walk through the process of how a large corporation would get ready for something like this, and all of the different things that I learned from research or from items in our sustainability classes or from my engineering curriculum at Stevens, how all of those different things play into a large company getting ready for something like this. So my project approach, I kind of became a snake oil salesman with this project by saying, here are my flashy 10 bullet points on how a company would get ready for CSRD in the European Union. And I'll walk through all of these 10 bullet points and how a company can comply to all of them. Now, first and foremost, not every single company in the European Union will be subject to these laws. Companies with 50 million euros in revenue every year, or 25 million euros in assets, or 250 plus employees. So the mom and pop bed and breakfast down the street, or the little restaurant with 15 employees, those are firms, companies that won't be subject to this. CSRD is going and setting a rule book for large multinational companies that can afford to do stuff like this, that are really the movers and the shakers in their industries. So to be ready for a law, you need to know if it applies to you. And in Hilton's case, it does. What do you do after that? You need to get all of your data together. Now, that could be a whole project in itself. How to get just the data necessary for a company for something like this. On a very vague scale, for most companies, that will be their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and energy usage, water usage, waste generation, all of those different things that, with over 500 hotels in the European Union, Hilton has a lot of responsibility to keep track of that anyway, and getting that data formatted into a nice thing so that regulators can find what they need easily. Any form of data that can be distributed easier is just, it's always better for regulators to not have to try too hard to find your data. You should make it easy for them, and you want to show them what a good job you're doing as a big company. So get your data. You also need to make a team specifically for this. Now, in Hilton's case, they do have a board that reports to their C-suite for corporate sustainability in general. This can be applied to a lot of different companies. A lot of companies have something similar. A lot of companies will have a dedicated C-suite level an executive who their whole job is the umbrella of sustainability. Now, Hilton is doing well enough in that regard where, like I said, they have a dedicated team. And because of how new this is, and because of how intense it can be, the importance of having a dedicated team cannot be understated, because there are a lot of fines that can come from not abiding by these CSRD laws in the EU. This is not just we want you to do this, we hope you do this. There are actual consequences to not reporting your emissions correctly, not reporting your water usage correctly. They have all these criteria laid out. And so why waste money on that? You need to have a team that knows how to do that. To have a team that can do that, they need to be paid. And similar to how Stephen was saying, incorporating Envision early in a project makes the Envision process that much easier. incorporating accounting early on in something as daunting as a task like this will save dividends in the end, because you have dedicated funding for your package for for CSRD readiness. And as we know in this course, in this master's course, everything comes back to money, and so involve accounting. And fifth, make a list of all themes that play a role in the business. Now, for something like Hilton, obviously they are a hotel chain, yet they are more in the managing role. It's easy to think that Hilton is doing the day-to-day in their hotels, but in reality, they are more of a big real estate company that owns hotels that are franchised out then to individual owners. And so part of the challenge with a large company like this, with a large set of franchisees, is getting these independent franchisees to comply with these directives that are coming from top down. And so knowing how your business operates obviously is important for any business, but especially with getting ready for something like this. Now, engaging with stakeholders. This is a whole new set of laws, whole new set of regulations. The people who matter to your company, they need to be known about this. So engaging with your shareholders, engaging even with guests in the EU. You know, this is what we're doing in our hotels. You're choosing a company that wants to try to be the sustainable option. Communication is always a good thing in any fashion. And so telling people what's going on, notifying your company, notifying the different areas of your company so that they can be aware of this will always be important. Step 7 is one of the most important steps on this 10-part list, doing a double materiality assessment. Now, I'm sure the students in the sustainability courses right now are more familiar, but for anybody who might not be as familiar with double materiality, it entails looking at corporate business from two perspectives: the financial materiality and the impact on undertakings, and then the impact of those holistically. And that kind of sounds all jargony when I say it, but double materiality is knowing that everything you do, everything else you do, and the impacts that you as a corporation have aren't just on budget spreadsheets, but they're on the lives of your employees, the lives of your customers, the environment that you live in. And that's important to holistically know. And there are ways to do proper double materiality assessments empirically. Now, the biggest flaw and recommendation I have for Hilton in this regard is that they do not have a formal double materiality assessment published as of the time of this project. And they still do not, but that was only a few months ago. And that is the biggest thing that they could do to be better about this. Now, towards the end of the project approach was finding any extra data. So always, it's going to be important to get more comprehensive scope 3 emissions. It's easy to keep track of, you know, your corporate offices and the water usage and the paper usage and the employee commuting patterns of your tight-knit corporate offices, but applying emissions calculations to the laundry service that one hotel might use, the trash service that a collection of hotel uses, and the emissions that come from those vehicles. Those are those extended scope 3 emissions, and that takes a lot more to track down. And a lot of that becomes estimating. And there are a lot of ways to do that, but when you have that dedicated team, that makes it that much easier. And any form of enhanced reporting is just good. And so enhanced governance reporting in terms of ESG is always good to know any local regulations that might differ from country to country in the European Union. You know, Spain is not Poland, Norway is not Italy, so on and so forth. They all have their own laws as well as EU law. And then finally, start making your sustainability report, have it audited by an accountant. And part of CSRD regulation with publishing a sustainability report means that your report must be audited to limited assurance. This means that your report must be at least somewhat verified by third-party sources. You say our laundry service accounts for X amount of emissions. A third party is going to go check in with that. Now, when they first announced CSRD, they were going to have this audited to full assurance, which essentially would mean tracking down almost everything that you report. And they quickly realized that for companies of this scale, it was a large ask to go right from the beginning. So a goal of CSRD is to move towards a higher level of assurance, but for now they're starting at a limited assurance for their sustainability report. And once that's audited, you need to publish your sustainability report out. And I'm sure, again, in the sustainability classes, you have gone on to websites of different companies and seen how easy or how annoying it can be to find a sustainability report. Sometimes it's as easy as searching Hilton Sustainability Report 2024, and it comes right up. Sometimes you have to dig, and it's on the company and that team that is in charge of sustainability at a firm to make sure that any of that information is readily available to anybody who wishes to see it. What does this mean in a larger sense? Not that CSRD already is not a pretty large scale, but a big takeaway from this is that companies should not treat CSRD in the European Union as a one-off set of laws. As the global economy progresses, other sets of economic blocks or large developed countries are planning or thinking about doing climatory regulations similar to this. This was much easier to write a year ago, but things are always changing, and I'm sure in the United States, I hope we get this one day. Our own, I'm sure you might have heard about SEC in the United States. We'll see how that goes. But even if the United States doesn't go through this in the next few years, whatever, other countries will. And so by being ready for the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive in the European Union, a company already has gone through that play-by-play. And so when other countries do their own, it will be much easier for them to take that work they've done and apply it to their operations in a different country. So doing it right the first time with the European Union could be dramatically helpful for a large multinational firm because other countries will have similar things. This is my project timeline that I had made. It fits onto one page. It's definitely not as fully fleshed out as Stevens was, but I met with my external mentor multiple times through the semester. This project was pretty solitary for me. There was a lot of just data crunching and reading through websites and manuals and just piling everything together for my final report. So there was a lot that was just me to work on. Obviously, it's an individual project, but this definitely had a little less coordination with outside sources. You know, I also didn't work with anybody from Hilton on this project. This was just as an outside observer. Some conclusions and what this could mean in the future. I know I already talked about future in terms of other large economies developing their own climate regulatory standards, but, and I said the second point as well, large companies know that they will be affected and should prepare ahead of time. I think we know that companies have an obligation to the world and their consumer and their customers to be better, and people vote with their dollar or euro, and they want to see the companies that control so much do better. And it's refreshing to see a large governmental organization take concrete steps to implement something like this. And as I said earlier, the corporate sustainability reporting directives are not just fun little things to slap on. These are actual laws that have consequences for companies if they're not followed. And I do believe that regulations like that will be so necessary rather than just corporations doing things on their own free will, because we know that doesn't work. And it'll have to come from the top down eventually. And this is a good step globally to see how this will go. So that concludes my portion of the presentation as well. And so now Stephen and I will be open for questions.
Absolutely. That was great. Like excellent